Hmm. Ding dong, here we are.
So you can see when people are joining and asking questions and stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I have it live streamed on Facebook. I mean, on my computer and the phone, is so that I can see. So I think that's everything that I was going to do there. So I don't think anybody's with us yet on Facebook, but that's okay. Because we're recording it, I'm just going to go ahead and we'll start our sharing, and then people join. That's a bonus. So here we go. Welcome to the Ascension Portal podcast, the sharing, community sharing. So I'm Patricia Walls. You all know who I am. This is Katie Lorah. Is it Lorah?
Laura?
I like to put that spin on it.
Yeah, you do that. I like it.
So Katie is an energetic healer and akashic records reader. I'm also an elementary school teacher, and I like to call her an ascension key. Although she may not agree to that, but I like to call her an ascension key.
I like the way
So,
that.
yeah. So, my work with Katie, I've seen that she clears energetic blockages. She clears generational traumas, inner child work, lifetimes within the akashic records, unlocking timelines, channeling messages from clients' higher selves, angels, spirit guides, removing lower frequency toxins from the physical and energetic body, and much more. And so I was reading that, as you can tell. But Katie and I have been working together for a while now. And
It's been about 2 years or a little over, actually, I think.
has it really?
Yeah.
And just what I've noticed in that short time is how you really expanded in what you're offering. Like I had that personal session with you recently, which was very enlightening. And the work that you're doing in channeling people's higher selves, I haven't really seen anybody else do that twist on it. So that is something new and different that you're doing that no one else is offering. So there's so many things that you could talk about, you know. I'm trying to multitask here. So there's so many things that you could talk about. I don't know if where's my Facebook? Because I can't really see if people have joined yet.
I'm happy to, while you're multitasking, I can talk a little bit about why I choose to connect people's higher selves first in my sessions. And
Yeah, please, because I'm multitasking, watching out for questions and stuff. So talk to me.
Okay, so I always start a session with first, before I even get on with somebody, I first connect with my higher self. I connect with my spirit guide team. I call in my angels because I work pretty closely with angels. And then I also call in, part of the work with the Akashic records is that one of my aspects is a record keeper. And so I make sure to always call them in as well. And so once I have my team here, sometimes they'll jump in right off the bat with like, here's what today might look like, or you're going to be working on this. And then I create sacred space so that everything is, kept in high frequency. And then I call in the team of the person that I'm working with, which includes all those same people, higher selves, spirit guides, any angels that want to join us. And the reason I do that is because I want to make sure that I'm always following the guidance of their higher self. I like it to be kind of a team effort. If they're not supposed to know something, then I'm not going to know it. You know what I mean? And then our teams can work together so that it is for sure for their highest and best outcome. And sort of what you were saying is it's a really creative, collaborative thing when all of us are in it together. The stuff that they have me do sometimes, I couldn't make it up on my own, you know? I mean, it's like phenomenal. They'll guide me and they'll tell me to do certain things, and in my head I'm like, you want me to do what? But they're like, just follow my guidance, we got it, you know? And so through working with these teams, because everybody's got their own unique significant qualities and healing qualities and abilities of their own, you know, I'm learning things through their team as well. So I just want to make sure it's always done for everybody's highest and that it's a team effort.
Yeah. And I don't think, I mean, I do know people who work on that level, but they're not always cognizant of the collaboration part. A lot of people are just doing a reading.
Right.
They're just doing a reading and are just doing the work, and they're not really collaborating in the way that I've seen you collaborate. So Indigo is here. Hi, Indigo.
Hi.
You have a question for Katie? You just here to give us some support and to listen to her brilliance.
I logged on to Facebook and there was this notice, so I clicked on it. I was having lunch.
Yay.
Yay.
Get to have lunch with you.
Yay. Would you rather record with no one else here, or?
No,
no.
I did the live Facebook because I wanted people, I mean the Zoom too, because I wanted people to be able to come on and ask questions. And
Excellent. So as far as Katie goes, what are the questions I might have for her? What are we talking about? I just been here a second.
Ascension work.
Okay.
Ascension work. Working in the akashic records. Does that bring up anything?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of new things. I feel like I'm seeing new earth manifesting around me.
Yeah.
Brings up that.
Well, Katie's a channel and a medium, so
Oh, cool.
what do you see about that, Katie?
Well, it's interesting that you call me the Ascension, that you refer to me as an Ascension key, because I do feel like a lot of the work, like the way, because I work with codes too, like all of the work that I do is in codes.
Mm-hmm.
Often what I'm channeling through is they just tell me what kind of codes I'm using. And so I often think of myself as like an unlocker. So the fact that you call it a key makes total sense. And so any of the work that I do in the records is really just based on like doing mass healings for people's lifetimes. So I had somebody recently who was having issues with abandonment. My record keeper came in, shared about the childhood event that caused it. And in opening up her records, we did a child healing, and then went into the vibration of abandonment and cleared it out of all of her lifetimes. And these include lifetimes, like all galactic lifetimes, any lifetimes within this universal structure. So that's sort of the mass level kind of thing that I can do. And then also what I've been feeling lately in my post this morning on Facebook is really, I'm my record keeper, as our frequencies get closer and closer together. I do feel like there's sort of like undiscovered wisdom that I'm going to be bringing forward. So this morning, for example, in my meditation, I meditate every day. This big light came in and I asked what it was, and I heard follow the vibration. And it took me back to a small snapshot in Lemuria where where harmony existed and peace existed because of our ability, like everything had a voice. Everything was speaking through heart-centered communication. So what we refer to as inanimate objects, like rocks and grass and trees, all of those were speaking as well. And we had this ability that we worked on to listen and to hear each other. And that's why harmony was created. So I feel like that kind of stuff is going to be coming more and more now, where I'm bringing like sacred teaching, sacred lessons, practices, methods for how do we create that peace on earth, like you were saying, Indigo. So yeah, that's very much related.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're in the so is Indigo, but Katie, you're in Arizona, right?
Yes.
Right there in the vortex area, because Sedona it's not just Sedona that's the vortex, right? But
Right.
people focus on Sedona as the vortex itself, but it expands out even to where Indigo is, which is like what, 2 hours east of Sedona?
Well, I'm right by the petrified forest, so
Is it
I'm
about, but if you were
it would be
driving it, would it be an hour or 2 hours? But
to get there would probably be about 2.5 because I have to go south as well.
you have to go around. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I think I'm like only 30 miles from Sedona, but it takes an hour and a half because I have to go
yeah,
around.
yeah. So if you were looking at a map though, Indigo is probably only an hour east of Sedona, and you're 30 minutes or something from
So we're like,
Sedona west,
yeah.
right? So the two of you are still in that vortex
Yeah.
of frequencies and energies. And how do you, so having moved from the north, you moved from the north down to Sedona.
Yeah.
How do you feel different, right? Is that vortex, how has the vortex affected you and your psychic perceptions, your expansion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, what I can say is that I had a headache for like the first 2 months that I lived here. I don't know if you remember, Patricia, but we
Yeah.
talked about it a bunch of times because I just like could not kick this headache that I had. And really what it was is just me acclimating to the higher frequency energies and trying to pull them through my channel. They were just kind of like getting stuck up there. So that was the first thing that I noticed. Other things that I've noticed, I mean, since I moved out here, and of course, all of this was in my divine plan anyway, some of it was related to part of leaving the East Coast was, it was sort of like this, like, metaphorical, like coming into a new way of being, right? There's like the situations that I came from, my childhood, schooling programs, all of that stuff was sort of like leaving like a residue inside, if you know what I'm saying, like a residue of like this old Katie. And so stepping into the newer frequencies was a part of me sort of being able to claim my abilities, to work on my abilities, to really step into my divine plan of what I came here for, which was to assist with the ascension. So again, the ascension key thing makes a lot of sense. But really the headache was what nailed that in at first.
Really?
Yeah, that was the first thing I noticed was that awful 2 month long headache.
So Indigo, have you experienced that? I mean, you've been there a lot longer, but did you experience that acclimation?
Oh yes. There are multiple layers to my acclimation because I came from about 600 foot above sea level and I moved to Flagstaff, which was about 7,200 feet above sea level. So there's an altitude sickness that has to be overcome. There's all these changes, but most of all, I think it's the energy being. Sedona is a different story. I used to work down there, but it's so expansive. It's your horizon might be almost 300 degrees when you look around you, but there's not a lot between you and that distant space. And so there's all this expansive openness and possibility.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think the connection to like galactics, right? There's so many UFO sightings out here for a reason. Connection to the stars. I've recently went to Sedona to sit on a mountain during sunrise, and there were just amazing galactic codes coming through. So it does, I think in that way, it does allow you to connect with some of those like otherworldly frequencies a little bit easier. Yeah.
The night sky is very busy.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, you know. Uh, so beside your own, you know, connecting in with the vortex of the land, you've got all the UFO activity there too. Yeah,
Yeah.
all that
Activity.
influence.
Yeah, I one of the first dreams I had when I moved out here actually was me driving on the highway, and on the sides of the highway, it was, desert landscaped. Of course, it's Arizona. All these like inner earth caves were opening up, and like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Sasquatch beings were just pouring out of them. And so like that's the energy I jumped right into. And we have a Mingus Mountain nearby, which says to have a Sasquatch being. I'm sure there's more than one, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
But they're interdimensional, so most people don't see them, right?
Right. Totally.
So we were talking earlier about your work with children, you know, and how what you're doing, because in the way of light language, right? Sometimes it's not always about outer, it's not always about vocally transmitting it or even your hands. Sometimes we're emitting it. So how is that showing in working with the children? How are you influencing them in a good way, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching now. This is my 11th year. I just started this past year. I'm a reading specialist instead of being an elementary school teacher because I wanted to dial back my hours a little bit so I could make room for my healing business. But my first experience was actually working at a school in Vermont for boys with very serious behavioral issues. A lot of them had been arrested before coming into this school, into this program. And I would have like 7, 8, 9-year-olds. I mean, it was really traumatic childhoods that they had that led them to have behaviors. So the first thing that I noticed in doing that work, and that's one of the things that I'm really good that shows up in my work with clients, is like my ability to understand behavioral patterns and archetypes and things like that, and to help that kind of stuff. And I'm a bit of a whiz when it comes to seeing past behaviors and what's really going on in the background. And so the first thing I really noticed was that these kids just really needed a relationship with somebody that they could trust. And I am somebody that kids tend to just trust very easily. And so their experience of school for the first time in their life was that it wasn't traumatizing. And their parents were like, wow, for the first time ever, my kid wants to go to school. Like it's been a fight for year and year and year and year to get them to put their shoes on in the morning. And now they just take off. So without me even really knowing back then, because I wasn't aware of all the abilities that I have now, I was sort of doing that emission that you're talking about, where you just kind of emit light language and the ability to like soften these kids and make them feel like they belong. But now that I'm more conscious about it, I can, if a kid will come to me in a struggle, I can just call in joy codes. So while they're talking to me about something that's going on, I'm calling in joy codes. Little fairies are coming and sprinkling joy codes. And, within a couple minutes, they've gotten out what they needed to. They're laughing hysterically, and then they can go back, to their classroom feeling so much better. So now I'm more conscious of what's going on. But they love to come to me. It's a really sweet, and kids fulfill my soul. So I'm very happy to be that person for them. Um, I'm now the reading teacher, and kids who struggle with reading tend to really hate reading, and whoever's teaching reading. But I have kids lined up this summer, like we're in summer right now. And I've got kids lined up this summer to do tutoring with me just because they want to see me. And the reading is just a byproduct.
Oh,
And
wow.
I got one student who was like at a fifth grade, in fifth grade, but at like a kindergarten reading level. And now his reading this year has skyrocketed. And his mom actually cried to me at the end of the school year about how amazing this is. That's been such a struggle his whole career. And now he's just, getting it so quickly. But I think all of that is just a byproduct, I mean, I just love kids. I always want them to feel seen and at home and have a sense of belonging, and all the academic work that comes out of it, I think, is just the byproduct. So my real dream is actually to have a pod of kids that, yes, I would do academics with them, of course. But what I really want to teach them is things like how to converse with your spirit guides, how to follow your intuition, how to meditate, practicing things like telepathy and heart-based communication. What's our true galactic history? What is peace on earth? And just having a group of like 5 to 8 kids that I can work with. And I know in some of my own galactic history, I've done a lot of those things. So hopefully that's a big part of my future at some point, and part of those records that I want to bring in from the akashic field is sacred educational teachings.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm multitasking here. And so Keisha had a question. So there's Marcy on here. There's Keisha. There was somebody else that I've lost now. Keisha, remind me what your question was. Because it's a live feed on Facebook, the questions go away after a while.
Oh,
There's 8 people viewing us
well,
on Facebook. So let me see. I'm going to add this here. What else do you want to share with us? Think of something while I'm multitasking.
What else should I share?
So what about your new work? What is it that you were going to, like you're starting a new venture? I forgot what it was. I know I'm putting you on the spot. I apologize. There was something that you were telling me, a new venture.
A new venture. I'm not sure. What was I don't know. Maybe I came in and out.
It was just in my brain. I remember talking to you one time about actually starting a school for gifted children. Do you remember that conversation?
I do. Yeah. I do want to do that. That, like I was saying, that's definitely my dream. That feels a little bit further away still, but that would be a dream come true, is having my own little pod of weird kids that want to learn how to do cool stuff.
Oh, I know what it was. Katie wanted your Facebook link, and I posted that. I mean,
Keisha. Yeah.
Keisha wanted I posted it for her.
If anybody, I have a Calendly link too that you can sign up for sessions if anybody's interested. And if you haven't had one with me in the past, then do a free 15-minute consultation. We can put that up in there too, and people can sign up.
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Okay. I can talk though. I'll talk a little bit. I think people's awakening stories are really fascinating, so I'll share a little bit about mine. I mean, of course, awakening is, such a vague term, because I think most of us have a very gradual experience. I know for me, like, my spirit likes things to be gradual. So Mine was very gradual. But when it sort of started to, there is a point I think where it sort of takes off a little bit and kicks in. Mine was back in late 2021, maybe early 2022. I haven't been awakened for very long, but it was a series of dreams that I had. And I always had cool dreams as a kid. Sometimes I'd like be struggling with a question, and then I would get taken up to a council in a dream and they'd give me the answer, and I'd come back down and be like, holy shit, that was cool. I had no idea what was going on. So in this series, I was older, I was an adult, and I was taken to a temple, you know, in some higher dimension. And there were these like white orbs around me, and they had said, this is your soul family. You haven't met any of them yet. Which made sense, because where I grew up, I love my family to death, but I've never incarnated with them before. I was constantly homesick growing up, because they just weren't souls that I had ever been with before. And so it felt very lonely. So in this dream, they showed me like, it was like a nice thing of like, they're there. I do have them. Haven't met them yet. Didn't know who they were, but it was a very sweet experience. And then this being that had showed me the soul tribe said, and now it's time to wake up to why you're really here. And I was like, okay, well, what am I really here for? And he said, you're here to change the frequency of the planet. And part of your mission is to change the frequency of the educational structure. And I was like, oh, cool. And I had been teaching for several years at this time, so that made a lot of sense. And then, you know, I had other series of dreams after. At this point, I still hadn't heard the term starseed before. But then I had like another dream where they took me to Pleiades, and they were like, this is the Pleiadian star system. You have an aspect here. You're from other dimensions, you're from other star systems. They were giving me all this knowledge. I had never heard of this before, but I woke up fairly early that morning and immediately went to looking things up online. And I love that, by the way, when you know, something comes through and then you look it up online and it totally matches.
Yeah.
And it was like Pleiadian starseed. And I was like, holy fucking shit, this is a thing. I was so giggly all weekend. I just remember like having this feeling of like such excitement, and ooh, I am from other places, and ooh, this, you know, all these weird thoughts that I've had growing up and not feeling at home, you know, all that typical stuff made sense. So my awakening sort of happened in these like series of 3 to 4 dreams where I was given little bits of information, and that was very fun. I'm glad it happened that way.
I'm just inviting some people on.
Okay. Also, I was trying not to swear at first because we're on Facebook Live, but
My favorite word.
it's gonna come out. I have a
I
swear like
use it. I use it as often as possible.
yeah. Well, they do say that people who swear a lot have a high intelligence. So
That I'm really smart.
yeah.
I'm exceptionally smart. Let me see who else. So I know that you're working with somebody else. You're working with an organization, and whether or not you want to mention them, that's up to you. But you're working with this person as, okay, we're going to say substitute teacher because because you are a teacher by trade. But in this organization, you're also offering teachings. You know, what happens with us sometimes is we're like forced into out of our comfortable spots. And so I love that by asking you to take over for them when they're not available and to teach their courses and, you know, and to take charge of the students and their expansion. I love that this person is asking you to do that. And
It's a big
so
vote of
we're
confidence. And I do have one of my challenges is always confidence. So it is sort of perfect alignment. People should know that I was like, can we get on early? I'm freaking out and so nervous about this Facebook Live. Like, so it is good for me. And I like when it can happen sort of naturally and organically like that, like substituting. Yeah.
So, how is that helping you though to like gain confidence by being, and I guess there's a reason why the beings wanted me to talk to you about being pushed out of a nest, being pushed out of a nest, so to speak. And
Yeah.
so that you have to be forefront on stage and give your gift to the world. Because
Yeah.
so often, I don't know, because of programming and because of, wounds, all the wounds that we have from just being here in this atmosphere, sometimes we need that gentle push, right?
Yeah.
And so, how has that helped to expand you, having that gentle push or
It's
not so gentle?
or not so gentle. Yeah, this was, I actually didn't know we were going Facebook Live. And then Patricia texted, she's like, we're going live on this one. I was like, oh my God, that one wasn't so gentle. But whether it's a forceful push or a gentle push, I do need it. And every time it happens, I am just met with like, oh, I can do that, or that's not so bad. It started in working with one-on-one with clients, and I would be so nervous every time. But then once you get into the energy, and it was the same with teaching actually, because people are like, well, you public speak all the time, all day long, you've been doing this. And I worked as an administrator for years, and I would have to run professional developments and things like that. But I was always just a mess beforehand. And then you get into the energy, and then you totally can do it, And so it's sort of just that's always kind of oscillating. It's like there's a new push, you're nervous, you get into the energy, you can do it. Then you're comfortable. Then there's a new push, you get into the energy of it, you can do it, you're comfortable. So I need that big time. And what this specific circumstance kind of showed me, because I've often thought about doing like group work. I'm not quite there yet, but this specific example that you're referring to that just happened a little bit ago, it was like, oh yeah, I can help a group of adults, and not even me helping. It's more of like just creating space for a collaboration, because everybody has something to offer. And especially with adults who are awakening to their own gifts. I mean, we each just have like our own unique fingerprint or signature on stuff. And we just need each other, and when we collaborate now, there's things that you do that I need. And then to my surprise, there was things that I do that you needed. I was like, oh, great. So the gentle push is definitely necessary. And I think it would be cool to be a part of some more. I mean, I've certainly been a part of groups for a long time, but to be able to run my own would be a cool thing, and probably something I'll step into soon.
Is there is there some advice or encouragement that you would give to someone who is just now what you call waking up, and you didn't just now wake up, by the way?
Are you saying that because I was before?
But so in that way, your thought process is that you woke up recently, and if we were looking at your timeline from 2021 until now, it takes some people 20 years to get where you got in less than 3. So is there any advice or encouragement that you would give to people who are trying to get to where they know they should be?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot of little things. The first one I'll start with is investing. Invest in yourself, try out different communities, try out different healers, try out, and following your heart, of course. Like your heart generally has a hard yes on things if it's right. And then you might have those mind things that come in, oh, I can't spend that much money, or, oh, I mean, I've probably spent somewhere around $20,000 on trying out all kinds of different things. When my friends were all going out and shopping, I was looking for different healers to buy sessions with. And that, even if you hit, maybe you purchase something with a healer or a master class with somebody, and it didn't really rub you the right way. You didn't get a lot out of it. What you got out of it was that you put energy in investing in yourself. And so anytime you do that, there's going to be abundance codes that come back to you in many different forms. And in this case, in your awakening. So I would tell people to take risks with sort of investing in themselves. And then, I'll tell you the thing that I think that is still, this is interesting. I know that you don't do this every day, Patricia, so I'll be curious what you have to say about this. But, well, my undergraduate degree is in Eastern religious studies and philosophies. So when I was like 19, I fell in love with studying things like Buddhism and Taoism and Hinduism. And that got me into meditation at a pretty young age. So I've been meditating every day since I was 19. So we're talking almost 20 years, about 19 years now. And that time is still so sacred for me. Now, I shouldn't say I wish, because it happened as it happened, and that's fine. But when I was studying Buddhism, for example, meditation was all around not thinking and turning your thoughts off and just trying to get into sort of like a void space. And yeah, that space exists and you can go there. But actually what I was doing was cutting off, like I would hear, clairaudience is my main skill. So I would hear things, but I would think it was just my inner narrative dialogue, And so I would cut it off. So what I was doing actually was cutting off my connection to my higher self and my guide teams. So now I would just say to have some kind of space, invite them in, invite your higher self in, invite your spirit guides in, invite high frequency galactic beings to come in. I mean, whoever you feel connected to, Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, create a space, invite them in, angels, open that connection, say everything out loud. Say, what do you want it to look like? What do you want your awakening to feel like? What are the things that you want to be able to do? Do you want to have conversations with Yeshua? It's not going to just happen like that, And this is part of that investment, right? Is like putting the time in. It's not going to just show up for you. But if you create the space and invest that space and ask for what you want and need, there's no doubt about it. It'll definitely come. And I think asking for stuff is something that I still forget to do it sometimes, but like really small examples, like there's this iced tea that I really like, but it's really hard to open the top, and I'll struggle and I'll struggle and I'll struggle and I can't get it open. And I'm like on like the cusp of like swearing, and like, forget it. And then it'll be like, ask for help. And I'll be like, oh yeah, like angels, can you help me open this? Like, I really want some iced tea. And the next time I go to do it, it opens so easy. Like you can just ask for big things, small things, high frequency things, 3-dimensional things. It's just about building that relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
If
Okay, so
ask for it, like it'll show back up.
In the way of some of us do things automatically, naturally, intuitively. We just do stuff and we don't think about it. We don't think about the fact that everybody doesn't do this.
Right.
And so when you say invite, can you elaborate on that?
Mm-hmm.
Because when as someone who doesn't meditate every day, I don't meditate. Well, I don't formally meditate every day. I'm going to use the excuse that I'm always connected in. I'm just going to use that excuse. May or may not be true. But so I don't formally meditate every day, mostly because I'm in 20 different places at one time. And I used to have people tell me all the time, you need to ground. And I'm like,
Mhm.
why? You know, I kind of like being in 20 places at one time, but so grounding is not productive for some people. Grounding for some people cuts off their connection. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Because my way of being is to be in 20 places at one time. And if you tell me to ground, I am shutting off 19 of those connections
Mhm.
and just focusing on this one, if that makes any kind of sense.
Of course it does.
Or
Yeah.
that's my personal way of looking at it. And so when I hear someone say, just invite them in, I need more information on that. Personally, I would need more information because I I never thought of doing it that way. So
Mhm.
can you elaborate all that to say, can you elaborate on that and tell people what you mean by invite them in?
Yeah, I mean, you can just say that. But that's the first thing that I do in the morning is I open my eyes. I do some breath work to connect my channel and to make sure it's open. But like I also feel that I'm always connected in, also like you. But I just think there's something really sweet about a formal invitation, because it's like meeting them halfway, so to speak. It's sort of like it's almost like an emphasis in gratitude, like thank you for being here. But I'll say things like, please come and join me, or please merge with me, higher self. And I'll call in, maybe Yeshua, Mary Magdalene to come be with me. I mean, it'll switch up, who it is that I feel like I want to connect to. But I just pretty much say, please come and join me, or please be with me now. At night before I go to bed, I ask, I do protection stuff, and then I ask for angels to come in and protect me. And I'll also invite my team to do any upgrades that I need overnight, or to help me with integrating things. They were probably going to do all that anyway, but I do think like the formal invitation is part of that investment in meeting them halfway. And then it sort of makes it conscious as well for you. Because like you said, sometimes we can be channeling a lot of things and we don't always know who it is. So it just sort of meets them halfway. And the grounding thing, yeah, that's interesting, because I also like that sort of expansive feeling. For me, grounding is more of it's like taking all that expansion and just making sure it's even in my body, because I also don't, well, so I had this a couple months ago in a meditation. Mother Gaia came in, and she and I have built quite a relationship at this point, but she came in like really sassy and she was like, you're telling everybody all the time to trust the universe, and you're opening up their channels, and you're connecting them to their higher self, and da 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 da. What about me? I'm the one here who's providing them shelter. I'm the one here who's providing them food. You think that your, sacred contract and being here is just with the higher powers up there? Like, no, like as above, so below. Each of you have created a sacred contract with me also, and being able to come here. And it's time that you guys start remembering that. And so I just try to remember that as above, so below. So as expansive as we are up here, we can also expand that far down below, and include her, because she is doing so much for us that we don't normally think of. So I've stopped just telling people to thank the universe. And she comes into my sessions a lot to make sure that I'm also guiding them to have a relationship with her. But so that's sort of where I'm at in the grounding thing now. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
take away. Yeah. It's just more of like an inclusion. And that phrase, as above, so below, is so true for so many reasons.
Yeah. Grandmother Earth can give you a whack sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to clarify something. So this is my way of that. What I described earlier is my way of being. It doesn't have to be anybody else's, right? There was a point in time when everybody was talking about their guides this, their guides that, my guide Satchmo, my guide Joe, my guide, Benjamin, whatever. And I was like, well, I don't know any of mine. What's their name? I don't know them, because I'm always in that state of trust, right? And so I did actually sit down one day out in my grove. I actually did sit down using my training. I actually did sit down and call in my guides and helpers, and I asked them to identify themselves. So I did that as a focused channeling, right? I don't normally do it, but I did that. And it was later, I don't, maybe a year or something later, that I just started saying the beings, because they all talk at the same time. And so I just started saying the beings. But there is a benefit to respect. That's what you're talking about, the respect of giving them your attention, the respect of identifying them individually and personally, the respect of saying thank you for the help that you've given me, and what can I give you in return? What can I offer you in return? There is that respect level that at this point in my ascension that I don't do consciously. I do it, but I don't do it consciously. But you're right. For someone who is, and that was my question to you, and I overlooked that. So for someone who's just starting out and what we call trying to come online or become awake, that is very important remembrance or point that you made, that you have to ask and you have to invite them and you have to show respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I like talking to other people, because at this age, I'm going to claim old ship, at this age, I kind of bypass all of that and go from point A to point Z sometimes, but it is important to remember it.
Yeah, I often don't individualize them either at this point. I just refer to them as they, the way that you say that the beings that want this. If I'm in a session, I'm like, well, they're telling me, or I'm just going to channel them. Unless they want to come through individually, like in sessions, it does feel to me like it's a group effort and it's in unison. But to start off, I definitely did close my eyes and if I would always kind of try to choose a situation where I was maybe having a challenge with, if you're a spirit guide that is here to help me with this relationship, please step forward. And then I would just start a conversation around, trying to ask who they are, maybe what they look like. And then how will I know if you're trying to get a hold of me? And then that's when you feel like maybe one taps you on the shoulder, or I had one that would tickle the bottom of my feet, which was really annoying actually. And so you kind of just start. So even though it's funny that you're bringing that up, because I kind of forgot that I did all that. But yeah, you can start with calling them in those ways too. And how will you make it known? I had my roommate's higher self, when she comes in, so that I know it's her, she sort of tickles my heart center a little bit. So if I'm doing something and I'm not aware that she's there, I'll feel that sensation and I'm like, oh, my roommate's higher self is here. Okay, what do you have for me? What do you need? So they have they're higher frequency beings, but they are sassy and they have personalities, and it's fun to get to know them.
Yeah, and that's what people forget, I think, that with our spirit guides, our helpers, just when you're channeling otherworldly beings, people forget that they're other aspects of us, but also they have their own personality. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, every time that we incarnate, we have with that incarnation, that separate aspect of us, there's an individual personality,
Mhm.
you know, and I think people overlook that. People think, oh, this is a higher, you know, a higher vibrational being, and they're going to be like somber and, you know, all, you know, and then they come through giggling and, you know, make cracking jokes and cursing like a sailor. And, you know,
You know, I have a friend who one of the members of her spirit guide team is a gay, like he lifts weights and he's gay. Like he's, you know, like very flamboyant and like is often lifting weights in the etheric world and then like providing messages for her to give to people. And it's like I don't quite see mine to that extent. But it's really they're really something.
yeah,
Yeah.
they each have, I mean, they lived in a body at one point, you know, a lot of points, and they had experiences that formed their personalities.
And
Yeah,
that's
and
one
their
of the
little quirks.
Yeah, and that's one of the fun things, I guess, to go back to your question about like advice for people who are waking up too. I mean, one of the most fun parts about waking up and about spirituality in general is that you're sort of just coming into who you really are, you know, your own personality, and being comfortable with it, you know, and you grow up with all these, you know, people with all these limiting beliefs, whether it's from family or culture or educational structures or any kind of structure, really, right? Well, and in this place will limit who you are and you feel bad about certain things, or you know, maybe you come from a family of trauma and so you don't feel comfortable getting really excited, because if you're really excited in your house and you get attention and you don't want attention, right? So there's all these things that happen that we just limit who we are inside, and so much spirituality is healing all of that so we can just be who we are. And it's such a joy
Yeah.
to experience ourselves in that way and each other.
Indigo, do you have anything you want to add? You've got a world of experience as well.
I, you know, your words made me ponder down a stream of thought that was simply it. I think my entire life there has been one thing after another that I realized other people didn't have, didn't do, didn't see, didn't think, and it did not lead me on my own to connect that it was part of special gifts. The majority of that time it was, well, why the heck do I have to see it this way? And so awakening to one's gifts is phenomenal. And I was thinking about Katie's story and how wonderful it is to be coming around to this knowledge now in this time frame, because there's so much support available, there's so much information, and I feel like people, here we are, Patricia, people of a younger generation.
We're
I
at that age now where there is a younger generation.
right, and I think they have come in very equipped to take the baton and continue the foot race. To there are tools that we needed that they don't need.
Right. Yeah, it's not taking them as long to get there as it took us, you know. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing about generational ascension and expansion, is that what's we did the legwork, we did the hard work so that they can come in to this higher frequency, right?
Right.
We came in, I mean, I'm still older than you, but we came into a very dense frequency when
Yes.
we came in, right? When I came into body, my indigenous relatives, you know, the people weren't even allowed to practice their ceremonial cultural ways until 1970. right? 78 or 79. And I mean, there's just, when I came into body, there was a lot of suppression of culture, of religion, of freedom of thought, freedom of movement. I mean, I think women were just given the right to vote when, I don't know, who knows? Anyway, don't ask me about history and politics. I will totally mess up your mind thought on it because I'll get it all wrong. But, and so I came into this dense energy of suppression. And because of the work that people did to fight that suppression and, you know, to overturn it and to open things up, people who are now in their, even in their 50s and 40s and 50s, it's easier for them to come online because there's not as much suppression. And now the ones that are coming in that are 20, oh my God, and the ones that are coming in that are 10, they're coming in wide awake, wide open. And that brings a question for back to you, Katie, is in working with the children in schools now, right? What are you seeing as far as that? Are children more open now? Are their parents more supportive of them? Because there was a huge concern about that at one point, about intuitive, connected children, and their parents were suppressing that. The school system was suppressing that. Do you see any change in that?
Well, I'll tell you, the kids, even from when I first started teaching 11 years ago to now, the kids now are like wide awake. I mean, I've got kids coming in talking to me about how they think one day they'll be able to go through walls. They can talk telepathically. They know things before they happen, talking about aliens. I think I was maybe somewhere before. You know, they have these amazing insights and things that they just know. So they are like wide awake, you know, and especially I think COVID had a big hand in waking a lot of us up, and including these kids, because I also noticed pre-COVID behavioral stuff. I mean, I worked in a behavioral school for a while, but I also worked in a lot of other places, and pre-COVID kids were more likely to do what you ask when you ask it. And really no questions, you know, no buts, no wonderings as to why. Although I always tell my kids, I always have a reason if I'm asking you to do something. You're welcome to ask why. But nowadays, since COVID occurred, behaviors are off the charts in every school, in every classroom. And me, who loves that kind of stuff, and me, who has always kind of wanted to defy authority and go against the grain and not fit in, I always loved that. It actually always concerned me more if I had a student that did everything I asked without putting up a fight. I wanted them to wonder why, or to argue a little bit to figure out why, or, you know, it's like, we have to build a relationship of trust before you'll trust me. And like, I'm down for that. You don't need to just believe what I say because I say it and I'm an adult. Now I find kids are all almost there. They're all defying authority. They're all giving teachers a really hard time. They're giving their parents a really hard time. And it's sort of, you now find this sort of separation in schools of teachers who are kind of retiring early at this point because they can't deal with that. Kids are supposed to respect them. They're authority figures, they're an adults, and that's how it should go. And if they're not going to do that, I'm out of here.
Right.
Then there's those of us who are really in it for the relationship and for the child's development. And then that creates a certain level of trust that, like at schooling when you guys were kids, you wouldn't have with your teacher necessarily, right? Even when I was in elementary school, I actually went to a Mennonite Christian elementary school. It was very, very interesting experience. So yeah, the kids are wide awake now. You can't get much by them. I do still feel there's some parents that are more on board, obviously, as they are awakening too. But there's a split there as well. There's still a lot of parents who psychic development or even thoughts about it, thoughts of past lives get kind of tampered down, you know. I know my nieces and nephews have said some wild things to my sisters about like, well, one time I died, you know, at sea, you know, and my sister doesn't tamp it down, but she doesn't necessarily open up the conversation to see what else there is, you know. So I think there's more and more parents that are waking up, even if it's just they love their kid and they want to support them. But there's a bit of a pool still of adults who are a little uneasy about it.
Well, yeah, because we're still coming out of the programming, right? And the teachers that you're talking about, they have a level of programming standards and rules, right, that they were made to uphold. And it's hard. It is not hard. It's challenging to come out of that. 20 years I've been abiding by these rules, and now you want me to be open and allowing, and what, you know. So it is forcing them to retire. There's a sadness in that, right? But there has to be a shift. And if the children are shifting, then the educational system has to shift to meet the needs of these children. So it's all required. It's all in the plan. It's all been set in motion. And the dominoes are going to fall. That's part of the dominoes that are going to fall that people keep talking about. Right?
And that's the beautiful thing about, you know, going back to where we started, which is why do I connect with people's higher selves, is because I'm doing coding work, and all those programs that you're referring to are codes too, right? So we can reprogram,
Exactly.
we can deprogram things, we can program new things, unlock certain programs, right? There's so much that we can do with energy. And there are some times where higher selves control it because they want, this person has requested that it be more gradual, whereas somebody just kind of wants to get blasted and have their perspective shift really quickly, you know. And so I just think that's another beautiful part about connecting first with people's teams and making sure that everything that's happening is in alignment, because things are shifting no matter what. Just depends on what shift you want to take place, how fast, how slow, how gradual, how quick.
Yeah. Is there a process that you feel comfortable in sharing with us? Do you want to, I mean, I don't know. You have so many gifts. So, the fact that you've led processes in this other organization that you work with, do you feel comfortable in leading us in any kind of process?
I'm feeling a little shy being on Facebook Live.
You don't, yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to.
Okay.
I just thought I would ask.
I'll do something for the two when we get off, though.
You do something for the two of us off when we're not recording off Facebook. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add? Is there anything I forgot to ask?
I don't think so. I actually love the Ascension key thing. We'd never talked about that before, but I think I'm going to steal that now.
Indigo, is there anything I forgot to ask? You can't think of anything?
I couldn't find my button. You know, right about this point, it seems like everyone always asks again for contact information.
Oh yeah, I put it on the Facebook link, and so when I post this on YouTube, I'll put her bio and her contact, but it's actually she's on Facebook, and I tagged her, so anybody on Facebook will be able to find her, and then also I put her Calendly link there, and Keisha Nicole says she will definitely be in contact with you, Katie.
Beautiful.
And
Patricia?
Uh-huh.
Can we get a recap of what kind of ascension work or what does Katie have to offer?
Remind us what you have to offer, Katie. And in room number 1, and then room number 2, and door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3.
I mean, basically, I just call myself an energy healer who also can do akashic readings, but it's so much more than that. Really, what I feel like I'm doing is sort of unlocking codes or using codes to unlock people's divine plan and put them into that pathway. So I can clear energy, like no problem, transmute densities, move things around, open chakras, do inner child healing work, go into people's akashic records and do mass clearings in there. There's times where I've helped, ancestors cross over. I mean, it's really, I've not come across something that I haven't been able to help with yet. And some of it is so amazing how it happens. I mean, this one person, I guess her team had been trying to communicate with her in her sleep, but she had a blockage in there. And so they like guided me to go into her dreams, and there was like all this stuff that I had to remove, and then I opened it up, and now she's getting messages in her sleep at night. So I can help you put into connection with your team. I mean, it's so creative, and everybody has creative challenges that there's creative solutions for. And I'm happy to dig in and see what we can do.
I found the Calendly link, Indigo. It's calendly.com, KT Lorah, Lorah. And so, again, I'll put that on the Facebook and also on the YouTube link, so people can make an appointment. And you're offering a free 15-minute consultation
Yeah,
too. So,
right. If you haven't
yeah,
done one with me yet, let's just touch base first, and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Patricia, for having me on here.
I love doing this. Thanks for agreeing to join us. So I'm going to stop the recording. So first, thank everybody for joining us. And please join me tomorrow. We're going to talk with Summer Dawn tomorrow at 6 Central, I think. I'll post it. Anyway, so I'm going to stop this recording somewhere. Hold that thought. I'm almost there. So I'm working on the computer and the phone. If anybody's wondering why I look like I don't know what I'm doing. Most of the time I don't, but okay. Stop recording.